I'm a big believer in conceptual planning, and by that I mean it's okay to come up with a concept first and then see what you can do about it. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Penguins versus Canadiens is tonight in Montreal. That's a 7:08 p.m. face-off in Quebec. And it'll represent the first full game for what looked like an intriguing, maybe possibly forward line that added Drew O'Connor to Blake Lizotte and Michael Bunting. Now, when you hear the first name, DOC, the first thing you're going to think of is that he hasn't scored in like 2 months. And when you hear the other two names, Lizotte and Bunting, you're going to think, wow, all these guys do is score anymore. I mean, they just score like crazy. And what I think of is something else entirely, because I continue to wait for the day that the Penguins as an organization can compensate for their lack of fire or energy. You can call it physicality, but it doesn't even have to be that. You can just skate around and be full of fire and energy and be pesky and be, ready, hard to play against. You can do all that without banging people through the glass. This team, of course, does very little of that. Now, it does more of that than it did last year, and that's setting the bar really, really low because that team's bottom six was this close to comatose. It was Lars Eller and 5 guys just basically eating up minutes. So when you hear players, and I did the other night at PPG Paints Arena in covering that nasty loss to the Avalanche, complaining about how there should have been more of this or more of that. What they're saying is that's the kind of stuff that should be coming from your supporting cast. But it doesn't, at least not very often. I used to even, this was last year, but come up with crazy lines that I would bring up, all in the same rental car or SUV or whatever from Wilkes-Barre. Like one line of just energy types. If you look at the roster that's down there now, there's some of that there. There's not a ton. There's some guys who can score a little, some guys who can grind a little, some guys who can defend a little, some guys who can pass a little. They also have a couple guys in the Mark Johnstone mold, which is guys that you really wouldn't want to be playing against because they're gonna make you pay in some form or other. And I think about what this team would look like conceptually, if you had 3 lines that you could count on. And I think it's fair to say if you're really breaking down the Penguins roster and placing it against NHL standards. In other words, here's the NHL standard for a first line. Here's an NHL standard for a second line. And here's what you'd want out of a third line, presuming you'd want them to pitch in some offense, which I think you would. Your fourth line, if you're being realistic about this, if you're not living in some la-la land, is not going to score. You're not going to get many goals out of these guys, no matter who it is that you have. You can do that around hockey. You're not going to find a whole lot of fourth lines that score. Even the Islanders don't have one of those anymore. So what I would be doing, if I'm the GM, I would be looking for a line that if it's not going to bring me any offense, it's not even necessarily going to defend at some sort of elite level, meaning like the old school third lines, the checking lines, remember those? Then I at least want them to do something. I want them to contribute something. I want them to at least wear down the opponent a little bit, make them look or feel somewhat uncomfortable, unlike absolutely everything that we saw from the Avalanche the other night. And if all they get is, 8, 9, 10 minutes, and if a couple of them are capable of killing penalties, so much the better. I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine. I'll even call it a Mark Johnstone line. And I don't even necessarily want him up. That's not my point here. But I want a Mark Johnstone type line where you're at least getting something. But when you're sending out there, Kevin Hayes, Noel Achari, Anthony Beauvillier, and I know Beauvillier's got 7 goals, but I just see so little else from him, and I feel like I've seen so little else from him in the time that he's been here, while also understanding and appreciating that he's got 7 goals and those don't grow on trees. But if I'm filling that lineup card out in the morning after the skate, and I'm sitting there with my assistant coaches, and I'm looking each of them in the eye and saying, you know what, I really think we're going to get something out of this fourth line tonight, I'm lying. Hayes might get you a goal on the second power play unit. He's not going to get you much else. Beauvillier might run into another one, but he's not going to get you much else. And Achari's just going to give you nothing. Now, on the other hand, maybe this third line is something. Maybe it can be a little bit of both. This is what Bunting had to say about adding DOC to that trio with him and Lizotte.
Yeah, I think he complements our line. Lizzo and I like to kind of get in the dirty areas, get on that forecheck, and then create chances off of that, and that's exactly OC's game as well. So, there's 3 of us going into the corners. Any one of us can do that. So, I'm looking forward to, building chemistry with OC.
Great. I think we can agree that the first and second are at least, NHL average or whatever, given in particular who the centers are. And, make something of that fourth line. Get something from that fourth line. Add the thing that you are most frequently missing. You know what that is. When we come back, J1Q. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season. From Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Abandoned ship, Bob. Sell the team. Are you a Pirates fan who is angry or apathetic about our perennial losing baseball team? Do you feel helpless because you don't know how to make a difference? Well, good news. We have something you can do about it. Join our Sell the Team movement. We're a group of passionate fans voicing our frustration and demanding change through billboard campaigns, press outreach, protests, and involvement at local city government meetings. Go to ourteamnothis.com to get involved.
Today's J1Q comes from Matt, who says, DK, the other day after the win against the Maple Leafs, the Penguins players were essentially saying, yeah, we're buying into winning, yada, yada. And then, after they get blown out by the Avs, we heard the old familiar, we've got to learn from this and be harder to play against. So what is it really with this team? How often can a team play so well one night and then so poorly the next? Why is there no consistency with this team? Matt, the answer to this, as you can imagine, is really complex, involves a lot of different people on and off the ice, involves the caliber of the roster, involves the caliber of the instruction, involves the caliber of the deployment. But I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to take a shortcut, because one thing that you learn about hockey very early in your hockeydom is that the greatest way to hide at least most, if not all, of your shortcomings is to get yourself some top-level goaltending. Tristan Jarry has an .881 save percentage. Alex Nedeljkovic has an .882 save percentage. The only goaltender who's provided the kind of goaltending that I'm talking about on any regular basis is Joel Blomqvist, and he is in Wilkes-Barre. So another thing that you learn early in your hockeydom, and this is regardless of how you either observe or participate in this sport over the course of your life, whatever, you will know this, that your goaltender and their performance is going to affect your entire team's collective personality. That's just how it goes. Any of us who've been involved in this sport at any level know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, including, by the way, you goaltenders. Because if you're feeling it out there, you know the guys in front of you are feeling it. And if you're in front of that goaltender and he's feeling it and you know he's feeling it, then you're feeling it too. It starts from the back. It always has since the origin of this great game. My contention is that this team's got this goofy personality that it's got in large part because it has no idea if the guy behind them's going to be able to do his job. That throws everyone out of whack. Then everybody starts trying to compensate. And to bring up another old hockey coach adage, if he's out of position and you go over there to cover for him, how many people do I now have out of position? And that person says 2. That's right. I have 2 out of position. And everything becomes a big mess. Again, I'm grossly, recklessly oversimplifying here, but that's how I feel about this team, in addition to a whole lot of other things. When I see the team doing well, I generally see that because I see the team believing, even if it's just for a period or for a span of a period, in their goaltender. When they don't have that, everything just falls apart, and more often than not, they don't have that. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll be back with another one tomorrow.